Harry backed away until he hit the dark chamber wall, and as he shut his eyes tight, he felt Fox's wings sweep his cheek as he took flight. Harry wanted to shout, "Don't leave me!" But what chance did a phoenix have against the King of Serpents? Something huge hit the stone floor of the chamber. Harry felt it shudder. He knew what was happening. He could sense it, could almost see the giant serpent uncoiling itself from Slytherin's mouth. Then he heard Riddle's hissing voice. Kill him. The basilisk was moving toward Harry. He could hear its heavy body slithering across the dusty floor. Eyes still tightly shut, Harry began to run blindly sideways, his hands outstretched, feeling his way. Voldemort was laughing. Harry tripped. He fell hard onto the stone floor and tasted blood. The serpent was barely feet from him. He could hear it coming. There was a loud, explosive spitting sound right above him, and then something hit Harry so hard that he was smashed into the wall. Waiting for fangs to sink through his body, he heard more mad hissing, something thrashing wildly off the pillars. He couldn't help it. He opened his eyes wide enough to squint at what was going on. The giant serpent, bright, poisonous green, thick as an oak trunk, had raised itself high in the air, and its great blunt head was weaving drunkenly between the pillars. As Harry trembled, ready to close his eyes as it turned, he saw what had distracted the snake. Fawkes was soaring around its head, and the basilisk was snapping furiously at him, with fangs long and thin as sabers. Fawkes dived. His long golden beak sank out of sight, and a sudden shower of dark blood splattered the floor. The snake's tail thrashed, narrowly missing Harry, and before Harry could shut his eyes, it turned. Harry looked straight into the face and saw that both of its eyes, both its great bulbous yellow eyes, had been punctured by the phoenix. Blood was streaming to the floor, and the snake was spitting in agony. "No!" Harry heard Riddle screaming. "Leave the bird! Leave the bird! The boy is behind you! You can still smell him! Kill him!" The blinded serpent swayed, confused, still deadly. Fawkes was circling its head, piping its eerie song, jabbing here and there as its scaly nose I'm sorry, I can't read today apparently, as the blood poured from its ruined eyes. Help me, Harry muttered wildly. "Someone, anyone." The snake's tail whipped across the floor again. Harry ducked. Something soft hit his face. The basilisk had swept the sorting hat into Harry's arms. Harry seized it. It was all he had left, his only chance. He rammed it onto his head and threw himself flat on the floor as the basilisk's tail swung over him again. Help me, Harry thought, his eyes screwed tight under the hat. "Please help me." There was no answering voice. Instead, the hat contracted, as though an invisible hand was squeezing it very tightly. Something very hard and heavy thudded onto the top of Harry's head, almost knocking him out. Stars winking in front of his eyes, he grabbed the top of the hat and pulled it off, and something long and hard beneath it. A gleaming silver sword had appeared inside the hat, its handle glittering with rubies the size of eggs. "Kill the boy! Leave the bird! The boy is behind you! Sniff! Smell him!" Harry was on his feet, ready. The basilisk's head was falling, its body coiling around, hitting pillars as it twisted to face him. He could see the vast bloody eye sockets, the mouth stretching wide, wide enough to swallow him whole, lined with fangs, long as his sword, thin, glittering, venomous. It lunged blindly. Harry dodged it and hit the chamber wall. It lunged again. Its forked tongue lashed Harry's side. He raised the sword in both of his hands. The basilisk lunged again, and this time its aim was true. Harry threw his whole weight behind the sword and drove it to the hilt into the roof of the serpent's mouth. But as warm blood drenched Harry's arms, he felt a searing pain just above his elbow. One long poisonous fang was sinking deeper and deeper into his arm, and it splintered as the basilisk keeled over sideways and fell, twitching, to the floor. Harry slid down the wall. He gripped the fang that was spreading poison through his body and wrenched it out of his arm. But he knew it was too late. White-hot pain was spreading slowly and steadily from the wound. Even as he dropped the fang and watched his own blood soaking his robes, his vision went foggy. The chamber was dissolving into a whirl of dull color. A patch of scarlet swam past, and Harry heard the soft clatter of claws beside him. "Fawkes," said Harry thickly. "You were fantastic, Fawkes." He felt as the bird lay its beautiful head on the spot where the serpent's fang had pierced him. He could hear the echoing footsteps, and then a dark shadow moved in front of him. "You're dead, Harry Potter," said Riddle's voice above him. "Dead. Even Dumbledore's bird knows it. Do you see what he's doing, Potter? He's crying." Harry blinked. Fawkes's head slid in and out of focus. Thick, pearly tears were trickling down the glossy feathers. "I'm going to sit here and watch you die, Harry Potter. Take your time. I'm in no hurry." Harry felt drowsy. Everything around him seemed to be spinning. "So ends the famous Harry Potter," said Riddle's distant voice. Alone in the Chamber of Secrets, forsaken by his friends, defeated at last by the Dark Lord he was so unwisely challenged. "You'll be back with your dear mudblood mother soon, Harry. She bought you 12 years of borrowed time. But Lord Voldemort got you in the end, as you knew he must." "If this is dying," Harry thought, "it's not so bad." Even the pain was leaving him. But was this dying? Instead of going black, the chamber seemed to be coming back into focus. Harry gave his head a little shake, and there was Fawkes, still resting his head on Harry's arm. A pearly patch of tears was shining all around the wound, except that there was no wound. "Get away, bird," said Riddle's voice suddenly. "Get away from him. I said, get away." Harry raised his head. Riddle was pointing Harry's wand at Fawkes. There was a bang like a gun, and Fawkes took flight again in a whirl of gold and scarlet. "Phoenix tears," said Riddle quietly, staring at Harry's arm. "Of course. Healing powers. I forgot." He looked into Harry's face. "But it makes no difference. In fact, I prefer it this way. Just you and me, Harry Potter. You and me." He raised the wand. Then, in a rush of wings, Fawkes had soared back overhead, and something fell into Harry's lap. The diary. For a split second, both Harry and Riddle, wand still raised, stared at it. Then, without thinking, without considering, as though he had meant to do it all along, Harry seized the basilisk fang from on the floor next to him and plunged it straight into the heart of the book. There was a long, dreadful, piercing scream. Ink splurted out of the diary in torrents, streaming over Harry's hands. flooding the floor. Riddle was writhing and twisting, screaming and flailing, and then he was gone. Harry's wand fell onto the floor with a clatter, and there was a silence. Silence except for the steady drip drip of ink still oozing from the diary. The basilisk venom had burned a sizzling hole right through it. Shaking all over, Harry pulled himself up. His head was spinning as though he had just traveled miles by flue powder. Slowly, he gathered together his wand and the sorting hat, and with a huge tug, retrieved the glittering sword from the roof of the basilisk's mouth. Then came a faint moan from the end of the chamber. Jenny was stirring. Harry hurried toward her. As Harry hurried toward her, she sat up. Her bemused eyes traveled from the huge form of the dead basilisk over to Harry in his blood-soaked robes, and then to the diary in his hand. She drew a great shuddering gasp, and tears began to pour down her face. "Oh, Harry, I tried to tell you at breakfast, but I couldn't say it in front of Percy. It was me, Harry, but I swear I didn't mean to. Riddle made me. He took me over, and how did you kill that thing? Where's Riddle? The last thing I remember is him coming out of the diary." "It's all right," said Harry, holding up the diary and showing Jenny the fang hole. "Riddle's finished. Look, him and the basilisk. Come on, Jenny, let's get out of here. "I'm going to be expelled," Jenny wept as Harry helped her awkwardly to her feet. "But I've looked forward to coming to Hogwarts ever since Bill came, and now I'll have to leave, and what will Mom and Dad say?" Fawkes was waiting for them, hovering in the chamber entrance. Harry urged Jenny forward. They stepped over the motionless coils of the dead basilisk, through the echoing gloom, and back into the tunnel. Harry heard the stone doors close behind them with a soft hiss. After a few minutes' progress up the dark tunnel, the distant sound of slowly shifting rock reached Harry's ears. "Ron!" Harry yelled, speeding up. "Jenny's okay! I've got her!" He heard Ron gave a strangled cheer, and they turned next to the bend to see his eager face staring through the sizable gap he had managed to make in the rock wall. "Jenny!" Ron thrust an arm through the gap in the rock to pull her through first. "You're alive! I don't believe it! What happened? How? What? Where did that bird come from?" Fawkes had swooped through the gap after Jenny. "He's Dumbledore's," said Harry, squeezing himself through. "How come you've got a sword?" said Ron, gaping at the glittering weapon in Harry's hand. "I'll explain when we get out of here," said Harry with a sideways glance at Jenny, who was crying harder than ever. "But later," said Harry shortly. He didn't think it was a good idea to tell Ron yet, who had been opening the chamber, not in front of Jenny anyway. "Where's Lockhart?" "Back there," said Ron, still looking puzzled but jerking his head up the tunnel toward the pipe. "He's in a bad way. Come and see." Led by Fawkes, whose wide scarlet wings emitted a soft golden glow in the darkness, they walked all the way back to the mouth of the pipe. Gilderoy Lockhart was sitting there, humming placidly to himself. "His memory's gone," said Ron. "The memory charm backfired. Hit him instead of us. Hasn't got a clue who he is, or where he is, or who we are. I told him to come and wait here. He's a danger to himself." Lockhart peered good-naturedly up at them all. "Hello," he said. "Odd sort of place this, isn't it? Do you live here?" "No," said Ron, raising his eyebrows at Harry. Harry bent down and looked up the long, dark pipe. "Have you thought about how we're going to get back up this?" he said to Ron. Ron shook his head, but Fawkes, the phoenix, had swooped past Harry and was now fluttering in front of him. his beady eyes bright in the dark. He was waving his long golden tail feathers. Harry looked uncertainly at him. "He looks like he wants you to grab hold," said Ron, looking perplexed. "But you're much too heavy for a bird to pull up there." "Fox," said Harry, "isn't an ordinary bird." He turned quickly to the others. "We've got to hold on to each other. Jenny, grab Ron's hand. Professor Lockhart." "He means you," said Ron sharply to Lockhart. "You hold Jenny's other hand." Harry tucked the sword and the sorting hat into his belt. Ron took hold of the back of Harry's robes. Harry reached out and took hold of Fox's strangely hot tail feathers. An extraordinary lightness seemed to spread through the whole body, and the next second, in a rush of wings, they were flying upward through the pipe. Harry could hear Lockhart dangling below him, saying, "Amazing! Amazing! This is just like magic!" The chill air was whipping through Harry's hair, and before he'd stopped enjoying the ride, it was over. All four of them were hitting the wet floor of Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and as Lockhart straightened his hat, the sink that hid the pipe was sliding back into place. Myrtle goggled at them. "You're alive," she said blankly to Harry. "There's no need to sound so disappointed," he said grimly, wiping flecks of blood and slime from his glasses. "Oh, well, I had just been thinking. If you had died, would have been welcome to share my toilet," said Myrtle, blushing silver. "Ugh," said Ron as they left the bathroom for the dark, deserted corridor outside. "Harry, I think Myrtle's grown fond of you. You've got competition, Jenny." But tears were still flooding silently down Jenny's face. "Where now?" said Ron, with an anxious look at Jenny. Harry pointed. Fox was leading the way, glowing gold along the corridor. They strode after him, and moments later found themselves outside Professor McGonagall's office. Harry knocked and pushed the door open.